Okay, we're back, folks. Another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider, the place where you get the latest and the greatest on Michigan football recruiting, Michigan basketball recruiting. Actually gave you a double episode last week. This week focused exclusively on the football side of things, and fittingly so because, they had maybe the most significant visitor of the season on campus last week, as well as some others. Got a chance to get out and see a big time target in the 24 class in Michigan, sort of maybe trying to pick the carcass from a Big Ten foe. So we will get into that with the best team in the land, minus one. Minus one is Bryce is preparing for his nuptials. Those are on the horizon. But joining me as he does every single week to talk Michigan recruiting, it's none other than Steve Lorenz. Steve, how are you?
Great, Sam. Hope you're well.
Yeah, man, I'm great. And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, be sure to like this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, if you want this 24/7, pun intended, go find us over on the MichiganInsider.com. $1 gets you in your first month. Once you're hooked, get that full subscription. And you will also get, as part of that subscription, access to all the sites across the 24/7 Sports Network and Paramount Plus. It is excellent bang for your buck. If you're listening to us on the podcast, be sure to like this podcast and subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts: Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. So, Steve, as visitors go, did I oversell it? Did I overhype it? Nyckoles Harbor coming to town was a big deal.
Just a little bit. Or maybe overhyped it just a smidge. It's not as if he's not the most sought after pure athlete in the last probably 4 or 5 cycles. So, by anybody.
It's interesting. I had a discussion before we get into talk about recruiting. Um, and it stemmed from what a lot of fans are saying. This idea that, man, you're missing out if he's not a defensive end target. And I'm telling you, after going to see him, Steve, I get it. I get why a lot of schools are doing it. I know we've talked about this before, but as we get deeper or closer to a decision, right? I think there's a good chance that I know there was some talk about maybe pushing it into January, which is a possibility, but I could see a decision coming in December. I could see that happening. You start to get into what is his impact going to be out the gate. And Steve, this is just the brass tacks of it. I think if he's a receiver coming out, I think the time where he's dominant, because I think he has he has dominating potential with his size and speed quotient, right? I don't know that he'll be a dominant freshman. I think he'll be a dominant receiver. I think he'll be a dominant player eventually at receiver, but I think it'll be a matter of sort of honing some of the technical characteristics of the position if he came out of the gate at that position, which is what I anticipate. If he came out of the gate as a freshman edge guy, I could see him being an immediate pass rushing factor for some team. So that's where I think fans, wherever he goes, will have to temper the expectations a little bit and not put so much pressure on him as a 5-star, which is warranted, that ranking, to come in and be an immediate star. I think he'll be a star on either side of the ball. I just think he'll be a star a little bit later down the road at receiver. Whereas I think it might be off the rip if he were to line up as a defensive end.
I mean, it's hard not to agree. I think what's kind of interesting too, wherever he does go, you wonder if they, like, because he's been adamant about wanting to play the offensive side of the football for however long he has been. I think he kind of made a sort of a semi-decision there. Wonder what his reaction would be when faced with that possibility, right? A year of like having to learn, having to get, the ins and outs. Whereas, yeah, he could walk on the field right away and at least be some kind of factor at edge. Every kid wants to play right away. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so do you, not sacrifice a year, but like you said, Sam, I mean, from a technical standpoint, there's no doubt. And I think our board has talked about this as ad nauseum the last few weeks. I think he's got a ways to go from a technical standpoint at the receiver position. But yeah, that's the type of size athletic combination that you could throw out on the edge on third down, first game, first year, and he's at least gonna draw some attention his way. I kind of wonder if schools, whether it be Michigan, whoever, after the he signed on the dotted line and they put the pads on, they get to practice and say, hey, I know you want to play receiver, but you could play Saturday.
Right.
You could play on Saturday if we put you out on the edge. Y'all just see quarterback, hit quarterback, and you could be out there right now, 100,000 people cheering your name. I think it's kind of a fascinating little deal because there aren't many guys like this that come along in that regard. There are guys who can play both ways, but a little bit different here where he legitimately could play day one on one side of the ball.
Yeah, man. I just think I look at Derek Moore and look, I understand the excitement over Eyabi Oki. I mean, Michigan clearly, if you're sort of assessing where they are, as far as question marks are concerned, I have far fewer questions about Michigan in the secondary after watching what they did against Maryland. Right? I feel like, okay, yeah, they can ball in the secondary. A lot of questions about whether they can get a pass rush with 4. And so they're going to audition more guys for the role. We talked about Iabioki, being a guy who could maybe fill that need, and he's going to get an opportunity to do so. But I tell you what, Steve, and I think he'll contribute there. But man, I think Derek Moore, I mean, the guy that I think he is my dark horse for the role is Derek. Physically, he's ready. He brings you to speed and the size, speed, strength scenario. What he lacks is experience at this level. But man, I could really, really see him maybe emerging in that role. It's not to say Yabioki won't, contribute there too. But I guess I'm a little more bullish about Derek being that guy because I think he has that ability to impact a game as a true freshman. I say all that to say, imagine Derek Moore with 4.4 speed. That's Nick Harbor. Now he hasn't demonstrated that level of dominance at edge yet as a high schooler, but I just see that kind of potential. Derek Moore plus some speed, plus 4.4 speed in Nick Harbor, which gets back to the point of what we're talking about. If you got that sitting on your bench, whether you're Michigan or LSU or SC or whoever, man, I know the temptation is going to be there. Well, hey, man, why don't you just go give us a couple snaps over there, right?
I mean, I'd just be gritting my teeth as the defensive coordinator. Like, yeah, as you say, why if he's sitting there on the bench, and you need somebody to get to the quarterback on like 3rd and 8, and you got this guy just sitting there. It'd be tough. It'd be really tough. And I gotta think, it'll be approached. And again, I say that regardless of where he ends up going. I think you have to have that conversation and say, we know this is what you prefer, but like I said, you can play day one if you play on the defensive side of the ball, and then we can still work with you on the offensive side. It doesn't have to be a switch for good, but then maybe he gets a taste of success there on the right, taste of success there and think maybe this is where I'm better off, and so
it's interesting at Michigan. I'm throwing this out there, not as something that I've heard, but just something that I'm thinking. I mean, you can play edge here situationally at 225. I mean, the way they drop their guys, if you used him as a situational guy, you could get away with it. You could protect him, especially with some of their pressures and some of the things. You can protect a smaller guy. I was just talking to Vance Bedford about this with regard to the guys on the roster now, not even talking about Nick Harbor. So, man, I could see it. Just look at what they're doing right now with the Marion Walker. Just figure out a way to get him on the field, right?
Yep. I mean, if there's 2 things here that are really important. One, we're talking about a guy who, yeah, he's as close to a unicorn in this regard as we've seen from a recruiting standpoint. As a guy like end receiver is not a combo I think we've maybe ever talked of. Edge receiver is not a combo we've ever really talked about with a recruit. And 2, if there's a head coach that has any inclination and not afraid to play a guy on both sides of the football, I mean, Harbaugh's got how long of a track record does he have of doing this? So, I mean, the recipe is there for him to do something. Yeah, to do something. And again, I mean, again, he's been adamant about wanting to play offense. It's like you almost want to say, you could make history here. Like you could play, you could be racking up sacks and touchdown catches. Like nobody's ever done that before.
Well,
So,
yeah,
you
and
know,
it becomes plausible though if you say, hey, we aren't trying to beef you up. We aren't trying to make you 250, 255. This is just one of the other ways we can get you on the field as a freshman. And then you let it develop from there. I mean,
yep.
if it stays at receiver like he wants to, that's fine. That's fine. But it is a way to sort of enhance his impact as a true freshman because look, let me reiterate. I think Nyckoles Harbor is a dominant talent on both sides of the ball, potentially, right? I just think that that dominance will be achieved a little sooner because I'm not just talk to offensive guys and defensive guys. Look, it takes longer there's a lot more to absorb offensively than defensively. That's not criticizing or disparaging defensive guys. There's just more to take in on the offensive side of the ball. So I say that to say that from a technical standpoint, the ins and outs of the position, route route precision and setting up routes, and especially if they use him as a as an H or a tight end. I mean, there's just going to be more to the equation than there would be if you say, hey man, pin your ears back. So, all right, let's get to the recruiting. He made it to campus, Steve, and it was it. I joked and said, treat him like the Prince of Zamunda. That's exactly what it was like.
Yep.
Everywhere he went. I talked to his dad about it. We have a story. If you missed the story on the MichiganInsider.com, be sure to check it out. Our Brian Doan caught up with him about the visit. He flew in on a Saturday, right? Made it over to the game. Everyone knows who he is. So it was a Saturday, Sunday visit. He went home Monday morning. And from the time he got to campus, I mean, everyone knew who he was. Denard Robinson did a great job, basically hosting him. His official visit host was Quentin Johnson, which stands to reason, the DMV guy. The DMV was very present. It was all hands on deck. They had all the DMV Michigan guys, all the DMV contingent in other sports. They were all present and accounted for. He met Ward Manuel. He met Greg Harden. I mean, it was everyone who you would think he might want to see. He saw. He saw. And imagine this, Steve. I actually heard he walked out on campus. So Maryland is one of the schools recruiting him, man. And so he walks on the field with the Michigan coaches and right through the Maryland sort of throng, man. And they're sort of giving him the eye, like
Hey,
almost
we're here.
like he's
We're
a
here.
traitor, right? Like what
Yeah.
what do you expect, man?
Yeah. No, he's not. He's not visiting your school.
Right.
Jeez. And he's got to walk through you to get to the Michigan side of the like. What? Yeah. What the hell do you
Right.
expect?
Well, it says something about the kid. I mean, he could have waited. He could have waited for the tunnel to clear, so to speak, where there was no Maryland contingent in there. He's like, nah, let's go. Let's go right on through them. And so, look, I said before, I think Maryland, I think their presence in this is being buoyed by the track program and his relationship with the track coach. That's not to say that Mike Loxley isn't doing a really good job of really sowing that DMV pride, kind of sowing that and weaving that as a theme to his recruiting. And a lot of guys are buying into it, but I'll say to you what I said to Brian Doan. Whether it's Maryland or South Carolina, two programs who you could argue are up and coming. For instance, I think Maryland is going to have. I think they're a bowl team this
Yep.
year. South Carolina, they might have gotten dusted by Georgia, but talk is Shane Beamer's. He has them. He's going to have them on the way up. But he's done the Carroll thing, Steve. This is what I said to Brian Doan. I said, while it's not a disqualifier that Georgia blew him out in front of him, like he's not going to put him off. But does he really want to go through the building? He's doing the building process now. Does he want to do that in college too? And I could really see that. I could really see that in the final analysis being something that's like, why do that again when you could have the best in football, you can have the best in track, and you can have the best academically.
Yeah, and again we've talked about this, like the academics feel legit in this one, which would you'd think would give Michigan an advantage over both of those programs in Maryland and South Carolina and LSU. So yeah, I mean, I there's what I guess if I'm Michigan, I'm telling it like what he could become at Michigan is greater than what he could become at definitely Maryland, South Carolina. LSU, obviously a little bit more of a prestigious football program. You know, if you're a star at LSU, you're a national household name.
Mhm.
Not sure. I mean, I guess Jadeveon Clowney may be the exception there for South Carolina, but really year in and year out, the big names at Michigan are guys that are going to be talked about on the news every day. I know he's going to be a big name anyway, but again, we're talking about Michigan top 10, top 8, 10 program in the country right now, and a guy who, yeah, if the chips fall right, could be a guy that's playing year one for them, could be a household name out of the gate, right? I mean, he'll be that guy. He'll be that guy if he's on the field year one. He's going to get the special shout out by the announcers and the analysts. You know, he'll get the quick camera shot. This 5-star Nick Harbor, top ranked athlete, he's like an Olympic track time. They'll probably do a little ditty on him too,
Oh
actually.
my God, yeah.
Right? I mean, he's going to get the little ditty, that they do for guys every once in a while. So, I mean, it's just a fact. The stage is bigger at Michigan, and they have those other things in tow that you mentioned, the DMV connections. They're a much superior academic program across the board. It's just lots of different advantages that Michigan feels like they have in this one, including I got to think the NIL stuff would favor Michigan too. I know we haven't talked about that stuff too in depth, but he is also a guy who's probably going to rake no matter where he
Right.
signs. And I think he's mentioned that too, right, Sam? So,
Yeah, he has.
um,
He said that explicitly. It's like, man, I'm gonna get NIL.
yeah,
And that's not
yeah,
being arrogant. I mean, he has profile. Again, everywhere he went, he's signing autographs. His dad was like, man, it was crazy. It was like he was a superstar. All these kids were running up wanting Nick Harbor's autograph, and he was kind of taken aback. It's like, Dad, what do I do? He said, I don't know, sign Nick Harbor 23. I
yeah,
don't know if that was meant to be suggestive or not.
yeah.
But
What do you do? What do you do if he say he goes to South Carolina and signs some stuff? What do the people do with that when he commits and signs somewhere? Like what kind is there an underground market for high ranked recruits signing teams that they don't sign with? Like I don't know. It's just kind of funny to think about signing
you,
autographs at a school you might not go to.
you said something though that I think is worthy of seizing upon with academics. You hear it so much, it's cliche and it's lip service, and you say, yeah, every kid mentions academics as a factor, and 2% of them have it as a significant one, like one that will decide their recruitment. But man, Steve, I really think that is a factor that listening to his dad, and you folks will be able to read the story. He was just he did not compare Michigan to the other schools. I want to stress that. He didn't say Michigan's academics were better than this school or that school. But just the tone of him talking about Michigan academically, you could tell he is why he said it's just world class. It's just, yeah, I mean, you don't even have to talk. People just know about what Michigan is academically. And so I agree with you. If that is half the factor that it has been for him thus far, right? Because I think I said in a prior podcast, in a previous podcast, that he's never gotten less than an A. I mean, he's okay, an A minus, right? He's got an A minus. So when that happens, is that it's like, okay, what happened, kind of thing. So academics are really, really serious. If push came to shove and all other things were equal, I could see that beating in LSU. Now, again, I don't know that it's going to come down to that, but Michigan acquitted itself very well in that regard. So he got the football presentation. He went over and hung out with the track coaches, and I guess he went bowling with the track coaches and hung with them. And of course, he got the academic presentation, which dad said they were absolutely wowed by. They were floored by the academics at Michigan. Now, the flip side of this is, as Brian Doan said, if he visits SC and he winds up really, really liking SC. Now, SC is the school in this contingent that academically could match Michigan, right? They could go toe to toe with Michigan. None of these other schools are going to go toe to toe with Michigan academically. So no matter which way you slice it, there's going to be a significant threat. I'm not buying that it's Maryland or South Carolina, which a lot of people are touting right now. I think LSU is the biggest threat. I think SC could emerge in that role depending on how things go this year. He doesn't have any visits set right now. He's gonna take them. He had talked about taking his visit um, to LSU. I think it was either later this month or early next month, but it conflicts with a game, so he had to move that visit. So I expect him to still visit those places, just don't know when. But I kind of like the idea, Steve, of the season playing out some more, at least as it relates to LSU, and then having him go and visit down the line compared to what I think is going to happen here at Michigan. So full interview coming up with Harbor, Nick's dad, and you can see for yourself, why I think Michigan is in a really good place with that young man at this point. So be on the lookout for that over the MichiganInsider.com. But Steve, he might have been the biggest name on campus, but he wasn't the only name on campus. You also had Nathan Efobi make it in. And not only did he make it in, I guess things went so well that Bryce, who is, like I said, he's getting ready for his wedding, he put in a crystal ball before he decided to get ready to walk down the aisle.
Yeah, he put one in and then just disappeared. No, I'm just kidding. Bryce done a great job in that recruitment. I mean, I think he said coming into the visit that he wouldn't be surprised if he put in a crystal ball for Efobi coming out. Felt like Michigan has led there. Biggest thing on him, he's an 85 on 24/7. He's a 90 or an 89 or a 90. He's a 4-star on the composite. We have him as an 85. So I'm really interested to see what I got to think he's better than an 85. That means he's got to be really high elsewhere for there to be that big of a difference. And Michigan's been going after him really, really hard too. There was a second wave of offers they put out about 2 months ago. He was maybe the first or second guy in that wave. And they've been treating him like a top target ever since then. So this is one where, at least right now, I would lean more towards the composite, not just because he's maybe trending to Michigan, but his recruitment, he's picked up some other big offers. He's just become a more desired prospect basically since the early summer. So, guy, interior lineman. And all of a sudden, Michigan's offensive line recruiting is starting to kind of trend up a little bit. We talk about Efobi. Michigan made the top 4 for Spencer Fano out of Utah. I know we've talked about him a little bit as for a Utah kid. I don't know if BYU, Utah, and Oregon are the 3 schools you want to go against, but he does seem to really like Sharon Moore, and will be back, right? He'll be back for the Michigan State game. So would not count Michigan out of that quite yet, but yeah, his brother's playing for BYU. He's from Provo. That one will be interesting. DJ Chester's still supposed to get on campus. They're still recruiting Nick Fattig out of Spring Creek or Sugar Creek, Texas, small town out of Texas, committed to Texas Tech, which, after that beating, they might be on a high right now after beating Texas. So maybe he's thinking more solid. I know he's another guy, though. If he does take an official to Michigan, like he said, is a guy I think Michigan would have a really good shot at flipping. So, but yeah, Nathan Efobi out of Georgia, a kid that Michigan, like I said, been recruiting really hard, did get him up for the official. And I don't think that Bryce's crystal ball will be the last one in Michigan's favor for that one, right? I think that we're going to start seeing that go a little maize and blue here in the near future. So all in all, we talk about Harbor, Efobi, the 2 official visitors. It's a reasonable shot that Michigan ends up getting both guys. So can't say it's not a successful visit weekend when that takes place. And Efobi would go a long way in kind of helping solidify offensive line quietly, a spot where they need some bodies in this class. So, I think he'd be a really nice pickup for them.
Yeah, and let me just before we move on, let me just mention Spencer Fano because I know every time we mention him, I throw cold cold water on that recruitment. Like I'm just not paying a whole lot of attention to it. Who is the kid that went to Utah whose whole family going back like 7 generations went to Utah?
Lander Barton, yeah, the
Yeah,
one where no Michigan recruited the hell out of him for so long, and it was like, oh, there got to be. I know he's a great linebacker, but there's got to be other people out there. He's going to go to Utah, so
yeah. I was just
yeah.
like, come on, man. It's just no way. I still had Bryce go see him, but that he was also going to see other kids. Like that was the weekend I had him go up to see Colston Loveland too, because he was playing on like the eastern side of Idaho. So it made it a worthwhile trip to also go see Lander Barton while he was out there. Spencer Fano, his brother's at BYU. He's from Provo. It's like, come on, man. There's just no way, right? Well, his dad on a regular basis, I think monthly, comes to may it. I know regularly he's here. He comes to me. He visits Michigan for work regularly. So there is sort of an end that is unique here in their pursuit of Lander or of Spencer Fano. It sort of makes it more palatable. This recruitment and the idea that you have maybe not a great shot, but at least a shot, and yeah, you will have gotten him on campus more than once. That's part of the criteria I look at. That you get a kid on campus multiple times. So I say that to say never. I'm still not betting on it. Still think it's unlikely, but not throwing just a total bucket or trough of cold water on that recruitment. There's reason to keep running the race at least with how frequently his dad is here in the state of Michigan. But that's not the only recruiting they're doing out that way, Steve. I know you mentioned something. You mentioned something in the lead in about some work that Michigan is doing. I caught it picking over the carcass of a Big Ten foe. Well, Nebraska, Scott Frost out, defensive coordinator is out. That makes their recruiting class ripe for the pickings, right?
Correct. So linebacker Hayden Moore out of Colorado, a kid that Michigan offered. I don't know, it was like a month or so before he actually verbally committed to Nebraska. It was a guy I think they thought they were going to get up to campus beforehand. They weren't able to. Michigan's really still going after him pretty strong right now. Yeah, obviously Nebraska kind of. I saw that Nebraska put out a bunch of offers. This is weird when an interim coach. I don't know how you like offer. Like it's just kind of a weird situation. Like, I don't know how an interim coach is going to keep committed guys hanging on and how they're going to recruit kids in the next class. But Hayden Moore's a guy I would consider a top-ish target at linebacker, and linebacker is another spot where Michigan needs a couple guys, I think, again in this class. So 6'3". He's a baseball player by trade too. I think he actually, one of the reasons he was given Nebraska a strong look was because they were telling him he could play both sports. Not sure how serious he is about playing baseball still, but Michigan is definitely, put it this way, the two schools that have been recruiting him the hardest since his decommitment, Michigan, Wisconsin. You tell me those are two schools that know what a good linebacker is usually year in and year out. So really good player. I think our Blair Angulo is supposed to go out there soon to watch him. So we'll probably have more on him in the very near future. But either way, a name I think to remember going forward at linebacker as Michigan looks to add a couple more guys at that spot.
All right, and a new linebacker offer went out recently.
So this dude, yeah, Arian Carter out of Tennessee. I can't remember if he's right in Memphis or not. He's committed to Memphis now. He ain't gonna be committed to Memphis much longer. He's got everybody. He's got Bama. He's got USC. He's got Georgia. He's got Auburn. I mean, he's got everybody. And Michigan was one of them that got involved. I believe he's a prospective medical student. That's one of those little things that can at least get him on campus. He is going to take an official. I think Steve Wiltfong reported this morning. He is going to take an official to Michigan. I'll figure out a way. If you're listening, this is a kid's film. He's not done moving up. I mean, he's a 4-star already. I think we have him as a low 4-star. I don't think he's done. This is exactly why you don't fret too much. There are always guys you can find late in the cycle at a variety of positions, and he's like a perfect example. Now, again, Michigan's recruiting against the same schools they would have been for an early top target, but still, I think Michigan's going to be in this one. We'll see if the academic stuff, as we say, we always kind of tread lightly when kids are huge on the academics, especially when they're considering some of those schools down south. So, we'll see if Michigan can make headway there, but he is expected to take an official visit. So yeah, Arian Carter. Like I said, I would, if you look him up, I would watch his film right now. He's a lightning bolt. He's a guy, Samaj Bridgman, a little bit different, more of a big thumper style. Nobody's going to ease the pain for Michigan of losing Raylan Wilson. I still think Raylan Wilson's probably the best linebacker prospect in the country, but this kid would go a long ways in helping there, because I think he's going to rise pretty far in the rankings, would soften the blow of losing Raylan Wilson if Michigan's fortunate enough to reel him in.
Yeah, and I want to back up the tape just a little bit. I mean, we be remiss in talking about visitors if we didn't mention Bryce Underwood making his way to campus last week. Very, very significant that the Belleville quarterback, class of 2025, 5-star, 24/7 has him ranked the number 1 quarterback in the country in that class and the number 3 prospect overall. So he is an absolute dude, 6'3", 200 pounds. Has been a dude from the moment he set foot in high school, and he was on Michigan's campus. So that's significant for a couple of reasons. I mean, it's demonstrating early interest, and that's always noteworthy because there was a time where Michigan, and it was a chore when it came to recruiting Belleville. Things have since warmed there, and so you have that as this exemplifies that. The other thing is the openness. I think the door was closed when they thought Michigan was going to get CJ Carr. Now that's relevant because if Michigan gets Jaden Davis, then I can see I can see this one with Bryce Underwood probably take the odds with him going down pretty precipitously. That doesn't mean that you don't run the race and you don't keep trying, because you never know. But I know when CJ Carr or when the conventional wisdom in the state was that CJ was going to probably go to Michigan, he wasn't even really looking at the Wolverines. And then I remember distinctly when words started going around that he might go to Notre Dame, talking to some of the folks at Belleville. It's like, this can't be true. CJ Carr is not going to not go to Michigan. And when it became clear that that was indeed the case, he said, okay, well, Bryce will look harder at Michigan now. So, that's a positive, and at the same time, probably not as promising an outlook if they get Jaden Davis. But you know what they say, Steve Bird in the hand. Like, if you get Jaden Davis, you get Jaden Davis, and you let the chips fall where they may elsewhere, right?
Yeah, at that point, I mean, who cares at 25? Well, not who cares, maybe a little too strong, but yeah, it definitely lessens. Doesn't mean that we're not going to get a billion questions about Bryce Underwood from now until the time he signs, because he's actually ranked higher than Dante Moore
Yep.
was in 2023 and is the top quarterback prospect in the cycle in 25 already on the composite and by 24/7 Sports. So, you know, looking at a situation where Michigan legit has two 5-stars and a top 50 guy less than an hour from campus, and they may not sign any of the three. It like I said, every couple episodes I say is only Michigan that this would happen to. This is like a Cincinnati, an Akron, and a Cleveland kid. None of them going to Ohio State. That's unfathomable. Like that would happen. But no, Underwood. I mean, geez, 39. I'm looking at his stats right here. I wanted to look. 39 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year as a true freshman. Almost 3,000 yards. Finally gets Belleville over the hump for the state championship too, right? I mean, they've knocked on the door how many years? Couldn't quite finish the deal. They do it now. They look like the favorites to win another one again. But yeah, he's the real deal. State of Michigan putting out higher, like better quarterbacks than they have ever right now.
I've never seen it.
Yeah,
3
no.
straight cycles with top 10 quarterbacks and 2 5 stars. I've never seen it. But like I said, I mentioned it for a reason. First of all, it's significant that a dude as talented as Bryce, a quarterback no less, made it to campus, even if it is a 25, in-state 25. But if you could get Jaden Davis, you don't pass on it. You don't pass on it. Not that even anyone was even thinking that, but it if you wind up not getting any of those three and you get Jaden Davis, does it really matter where he's from? Like
No,
if they're
true.
all top 10 guys and you think they're all 5 stars, right? Does it matter which 5 star you get? I'm just saying, just give me one of them. That would be my take.
I agree, and honestly, in a way, I mean, could argue Davis maybe even more valuable because of his connection to a lot of other recruits around, right? I mean, his commitment, a potential commitment to Michigan, would send some positive reverberations, I think, in Michigan's direction. So, not that the other guys wouldn't have. I mean, it's always, it's always helps a school when you get a big time quarterback recruit committed, but uh, Davis just seems to have some real pull with a lot of guys that Michigan is recruiting pretty hard. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be bizarre. I mean, but again. I'm with you though, as far as if you get a guy like Davis, it kind of erases a lot of the uh, negativity that would normally. I mean, can you imagine if they didn't get Davis?
Oh
Now
yeah,
all of a sudden Bryce Underwood becomes the most important recruit like ever
right.
because we're talking about three 5-star level guys that are one related to the a guy that they just named the frickin' tunnel after and they don't get any of them. So yeah, kind of funny, but
Well, we're arming you, the listener, the Michigan fan listener, with all the ammunition, because that will be, even if they get Jaden Davis, understand what's coming. If Michigan doesn't get any of these three guys, that will be there will be stories in the Free Press written about it.
yeah.
There will be national recruiting headlines. 3 straight guys from the state of Michigan, and Michigan didn't get any of them. And you come back and you say, okay, they got Jaden Davis. Now I'm not saying that is definitely going to happen. I'm saying if it comes to pass, that will be your rebuttal. Like, really, we're gonna quibble over which 5 star they got? Like,
Yep. Yeah.
what is that, right? But I got to give you some props, Steve, because you were talking about Brady Prieskorn. We can close out talking, man. And by the way, our Andre Bryce boys, he's gonna get out and see Bryce this week. I believe it's this week. He's going out to see Bryce Underwood, so we'll have more for you on the site on Bryce. But I went out to see Brady Prieskorn last week. Little kid. Normally, when I go to a game, I'm able to broadcast the footage right to my phone and upload it. Some technical difficulty, I couldn't do that, but I do have the footage. Gonna put it up on the site. You were talking about Brady Prieskorn being a dude, Steve, and I know the rankings say he's a dude, but I always like to, especially with it being an in-state guy, go see him myself. He's a guy. Brady Prieskorn is the real deal. Let's be clear, because it was a home game for Rochester Adams, but West Bloomfield is a power. West Bloomfield got on the board first. Samaj Morgan, yeah, Samaj is just an electric player. They get on the board first, you feel like, okay, this is going to be a tough game, especially with the style of offense Rochester Adams plays. They're a ground and pound attack. They do the hide the ball thing. That is their offense. Matter of fact, Bryce was like, because he went to see Brady Prieskorn. He went to see Rochester Adams, I think week 1 versus Orchard Lake. And he was like, man, I went to this game and they didn't throw the ball to him any. Like, he's like, you sure you want to go see him? I was like, yeah, this is a big enough game. And it was packed. The atmosphere was electric. And they threw it to him, Steve. And when I say they threw it to him, I mean, this dude slants, fades, and he caught 2 touchdowns in the game. It's not like they threw it to him 20 times. It was more like 4 or 5 passes. But each time he got the football, you were like, man, this dude can move. He has good size. He can really move to be that size, and he's fluid. So he brings really good length. He's fluid. But then the part that really kind of impressed me as much, if not more, was how tough he was. He matched up in this game with Amir Herring, who we'll hear from here shortly on the podcast. I'm a huge Amir Herring guy. In fact, I think Amir is going to be an outstanding lineman at Michigan. He's along the same lines as some of the guys we've seen here recently. He's a super high IQ, super smart dude that if you wanted to play him at center, I could really see it. but he brings the attitude and nastiness as well, mixing in some really good leadership. I think Amir is going to be an impact offensive lineman for Michigan. But when you line him up against a guy like Brady Prieskorn and who he outweighs by like 40 pounds, frankly, I'm expecting Brady Prieskorn to have a really rough day, right? And Steve, he held his own. And so I learned as much about Brady Prieskorn watching him match up with Amir as I did watching him go out for routes. So, that was a great litmus test, at least for me, watching that kid play. I know he was ranked high already. I believe Alan True, his talent assessment skills, but I always like to go see him myself. And that is a guy. I see Michigan, I see Bama, I see Ohio State, I see Georgia, I see where all the big timers are after Brady Prieskorn.
He actually just uploaded a few of his games in the hit. So I'm a little disappointed he didn't put any of his matchup against Herring on his West Bloomfield huddle. First play, he drags a line. He blocks a linebacker about 20 yards down the field, throws him on the ground. Next play, catches a little out route, runs over the defensive back. So totally agree, Sam. Looks like a dude is not afraid to mix it up and hit guys and stuff, which of course, if you're any program that's recruiting the tight end position, that's really almost sometimes that's one of the harder traits to find is a guy who's not just concerned about catching passes like a wide receiver, but a guy who's actually going to go out there and play a physical brand of football. So no, we've talked a little bit. I mean, tight end is loaded in 2024. Michigan not only recruits the position better than most schools, but they play more guys there than almost anybody does too. So they always have some advantages when they're recruiting at tight end. Now you add Grant Newsome. And actually, to be clear, they've usually had one of their best recruiters at tight end, coincidentally, between Jay Harbaugh, Sharon Moore, now Grant Newsome, who I think is already been one of Michigan's more effective recruiters and is only going to get better. So Prieskorn, super quiet kid. I know you're going to have more on him coming out of the trip. But a guy, and we talked briefly last week, was a guy I've heard good things about Michigan. I know Alan came in, mentioned Michigan State still a factor. I guess he could play. I guess he could start for them on Saturday. I guess maybe they could pitch him that. I mean, you see Michigan State got a 4-star corner commit on Monday. It's guarantee you they called him up and said, "Hey, can you graduate? Can you graduate this week? We can get you up here for this game against Maryland." Notre Dame though, and like you said, Sam, Alabama, all the big dogs still, and he's not gotten out to go see any of those schools yet. So, still probably a ways to go in that one. But yeah, I mean, I think we said when we found out he's been to Michigan 4 times already. That's always such a good indicator that at the very least they're going to be in it until the end. But this is a kid, quieter kid. For some reason I just have a hunt Grant Newsome. I feel would be the type that would do really well with these reserved type kids and stuff. And for some reason I kind of feel good about Michigan's chances on this one. Call it a little bit of an instinct type call, but just a guy I can envision eventually committing to Michigan.
Yeah, I wanted to close things out, letting you hear. I always like to let you hear from a recruit if we can on the podcast. Got a chance to catch up with Amir after a tough game. I mean, they came out the gate early, got on top, and then Rochester Adams just opened up on them. And you can kind of see the adversity kind of get to West Bloomfield a bit, and a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes in that contest. And so I'm just really impressed, and I think you will be too, in hearing from Amir Herring. I think we have an appreciation for what he is as a player, but as you get to talk to him off the field or after a game is over, and especially after a loss, you get a chance to really hear the leadership characteristics that I think are going to make him such a valuable member, not only of this class, but of one of Michigan's future offensive lines, maybe many future offensive lines. I could see him being a multiple year starter at Michigan. So this is Amir Herring talking about a tough loss to Rochester Adams. and helping his West Bloomfield team bounce back, and also talking a little recruiting. Here is Amir Herring.
All right, Amir, man, part of leadership is bouncing back from a loss. What did you tell your team out there after the game?
Just overall, we just need to clean up the things, in-house that we got going on at West Bloomfield. Just overall, today was just not, it was not the best game for us. We didn't bring our A game, and it just showed on the field and the scoreboard. And we just need to bounce back just overall as a group. And I feel like we have so many athletes on this team, probably one of the deepest teams in the state and one of the deepest teams I ever played on. So I just can't wait, to see how we bounce back next week against Lake Orion.
So when you say it just wasn't your day, was it execution? Was it discipline? What do you mean when you say it wasn't your day?
We just didn't execute, really. Just overall, just on all phases of the game, we just didn't execute. We need to clean up the penalties that we had, personal fouls. That's controllable. We just need to control the controllables of the game, really. We can't put it in the ref's hands.
Right. So that's the collective. What about you individually? What did you feel like you did well? What did you feel like you need to do better?
I felt like, in the time of need when we needed it as an offensive line group, I feel like we all stepped up, all 5 guys. Really, we fought to the end, and I love my guys, and I love the offense more than anything, and my whole team, I love them. But, we just have to, clean up some things really just as a group. And me as an individual, just overall, I feel like I played pretty well today. But, we didn't get the outcome that we wanted. But I'm going to give 110% every game, no matter the score. When clock strikes triple zeros, I want to know that I gave it my all, and I gave it my all tonight.
So it's not like you haven't been on teams that lost games before, but you guys seem to always bounce back and come back stronger from losses since you've been at West Bloom. So how have you been able to do that? What's the common thread of how this team, West Bloomfield in the past, has bounced back from losses so successfully?
We're just not a losing program here. We have a rich tradition of winning. Just overall, the coaching staff, they tighten up their game. A lot of the players, we cut out all the distractions. So really, I feel like going from last week, big win against Clarkston, into this week against a loss to Rochester Adams. This is our 3rd loss to them in 2 years. So we just got to get better overall and just go back to the drawing board and just be better as a whole team, as a collective. So
you went against number 22, Brady Prieskorn, all game. That was like a battle royal. What did you think of him? What was that matchup like for you?
He has good length, really good length. As tight end, defensive end, has really good length. But I felt like I had a great game against him.
Mm-hmm. So obviously this is your focus, but you spent a lot of time up in Michigan, man. When you committed, you talked about recruiting other guys. Are you able to do that right now? Are you able to talk to other players about Michigan at all?
Yeah. So Coach Moore and the offensive staff just really puts a lot of, emphasis on the offensive line group for me, because I was the first guy to commit in the group. So just overall, and now I think they're sharing it with Evan too. But they just give me a list of guys just to go through, reach out to them, just show them love, really.
Who are you talking to maybe the most right now?
So before Evan actually committed, it was Evan, but it was Evan, and then Spencer Fano, DJ Chester, just some guys. That's just some guys to name off right now.
Do you feel like, whether it's offensive linemen or other guys that you might talk to in a group text, you feel like you guys are close to maybe getting anyone?
I would say, I feel like it's a lot of high interest guys that we have on the board right now.
Mm-hmm. Were you there last week?
I was there.
So how did Chris Peel, did you talk to him at all?
So yeah, me and Samaj was talking to him, just, saying, this is what the program offers and everything. And actually my mom talked to his mom really about what it is on the mom's perspective of me being committed to Michigan. And I feel like she really enjoyed, both of the moms talking. So overall, I just felt like it was just a really good experience for him, I feel like. And I feel like we got a really good chance of getting him.
All right, Amir, man, appreciate your time. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
So, Steve, it's like I feel like the last couple of cycles, there have been linemen like that. We're talking about Raheem Anderson a couple of years ago, kind of having that trait, right? Doesn't it just feel like interior line recruiting has sort of targeted that kind of guy here of late?
Yeah, I feel like it's always kind of been, I don't know about you, offensive linemen are usually like my favorite position group to talk to year in and year out. I mean, they seem to be the most, that and quarterback, when you can get a hold of them, they seem to be the most in-depth or a lot of, I guess I'm going back. I'm thinking about guys like Kyle Bosch and Ben Bredesen and stuff. They're the ones who will tell you what it is, like it is too, like in their recruitment. They're not really, a lot of times they're not the ones to beat around the bush about maybe what schools they're liking and stuff, whereas like I don't know why, but just for whatever reason, offensive line guys are seem to be a little more cerebral about everything, I guess. Yeah, and you mentioned Raheem Anderson, Amir right there, someone we've all been covering for a long time at this point. And yeah, this perfect addition for Michigan. I think we've compared him to Raheem in 100 ways. I mean, the way his recruitment played out, the type of player he is, what he can provide for Michigan on the field and off the field, from both a player standpoint and a leadership standpoint too. So great player. Excited to see him continue to develop this year. And yeah, a guy, like you said, I think he will be an impact guy for them at some point throughout his career.
Well, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. I always say, if you like this podcast, if you're listening to it, be sure to rate it, be sure to review it, be sure to tell all your friends about it. They can get this podcast wherever they get their podcasts: Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get a notification every time another piece of footage, another new video goes up. And of course, if you really want to keep track 24/7, then you need to find us over on the MichiganInsider.com. Subscribe to us over there. Football, basketball, and recruiting. No one does it better than the crew over at the MichiganInsider.com. $1 gets you in your first month. I always say, once you get hooked, and you will get hooked, you become a full paying member, you'll also get Paramount Plus as part of your subscription. Cannot beat the bang for your buck. So until the next time, we'll see you next week on another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider.